Although Kirk Frost has been embroiled in several scandals, this one is especially intimate. According to insiders, there have been rumors that mom Scott Y. Young and the producers of Love and Hip Hop intend to fire him permanently. However, he is determined to battle to keep his job, and I can assure you that you will be shocked by the extent he will go to. The situation becomes complicated when it turns out that Kirk might have information on the producers that could be used against him. The whispers of backstabbing and betrayal behind the scenes shock fans. Kirk is upset over being replaced and is accusing everyone of leaving him, including his own castmates and LMA Scott, according to those close to the matter. What's actually going on then? Will Kirk Frost come clean and return to the show, or will his career as a reality TV personality come to an end? This is only the beginning of the story, so hold on tight. Every controversy, disagreement, and furious fight on Love and Hip Hop has been survived by Kirk Frost, who has always been a survivor. But something felt different this time. Not only were the rumors circulating, but they were coming from within and were more than just speculation. No matter how bad things got, he always managed to keep his spot, even though he had watched cast members come and go, suffered betrayals, and been publicly humiliated. Kirk didn't take the claims seriously when he initially saw the posts saying he was on the chopping block, since cast members were terrified of being replaced every year, and everyone thought someone was being cut every season. But Kirk was familiar with the show. He had added to the drama and consistently provided the producers with what they desired. The producers chuckled at another baseless story and another attempt to stir things up because they were considering phasing him out. But when the leak started, industry insiders confirmed the sources, and even more concerningly, his own co-stars said nothing. It was then that Kirk understood this was more than a mere rumor. An internal email screenshot hit. A discussion between Love and Hip Hop producers on upgrading the ensemble and saying goodbye to more experienced actors was first made public on social media. Fans immediately started to question who else they might be talking about, even if his name wasn't mentioned explicitly. Then someone played a recording of a private production meeting, and the things that were said in that room were transmitted to Kirk's entire world had fallen apart. Kirk's plot is worn out. We've seen him in every way possible, and he's just no longer as interesting. Those remarks are heartbreaking, and the supporters no longer care as much about him as they used to. But worse, he can be replaced. Because he was a part of Love, Kirk had believed for years that he was too significant to be cut, no matter what. Was the foundation of hip-hop, but suddenly they were talking about him like he was simply another cast member. His hands trembling with anger, he grabbed his phone and started making calls. If anyone knew how Love and hip-hop were, it was Stevie J whom he contacted first. He had been expelled once and had fought his way back into the spotlight, but when Stevie answered the phone, "Look, Kirk, I don't know all the details, but I heard some things. People are saying Mona wants to shake things up. They're bringing in fresh faces. They think some of us have run our course." Stevie sighed after a long silence. Kirk's tone was strange, and Stevie asked too casually, "What's up, man?" Kirk wasted no time in letting me know the reality about the situation. Stevie ceased trying to contain his annoyance when he replied, "It's not just about the show, bro. They got something on you. Kirk's blood ran cold." "What the hell are you talking about?" "This can't be real," he replied, "because I've been here since day one, Stevie, and I've built this show just as much as anyone else." Kirk tightened his teeth, wondering how they could possibly have anything against him. Stevie paused, then said, "I don't know the details, but there's talk about something from your past that they think could hurt the brand." He had experienced everything: child support issues, infidelity scandals, even rumors that his marriage was failing, but none had ever been serious enough to remove him from the program before he could file charges. Stevie heard a beep and noticed that his wife, partner, and staunchest ally, Rashida, was getting another call for more details. He immediately switched calls because she was the only one who really understood what was going on. With a sigh, Rashida explained everything to him, and he understood that she wasn't just hearing gossip. She had some knowledge, Kirk. As I told you before, her voice was soft and cautious. His chest constricted, "But I'd like not to concern you until I know more." She inhaled deeply now. "According to a producer I spoke with off the record, they were worried about your reputation since something from your past, Kirk, surfaced and could have negative consequences if it were to leak." "What the hell are you talking about, Rashida?" he thought as his heart raced in his ears. He closed his eyes and tightened his grip on the phone, whispering, "Tell me." Rashida paused for a moment before she finally said, "They're saying you were involved in something illegal. Kirk, something serious, and if this gets out, you might not just lose the show. You might lose everything for the first time since this nightmare." Kirk Frost had been through his share of drama in the reality TV business, but this time it was different. Rather than being gossip or cheating allegations, this was something that could kill his career for good. He was already furious at the idea of being replaced, so he paced back and forth in his home office, his thoughts racing. There was more to it. Someone was trying to ruin him by investigating his background. With her arms crossed and her eyes wide with concern, Rashida sat across from him. "I said, you need to figure out who's behind this before it spirals out of control." Kirk listened, rubbed his hands together, and exhaled sharply. He answered, I know, but I don't even know where to start. And the producers have not disclosed to me who initiated the conversation." When Kirk's phone buzzed again, this time from an unfamiliar number, his heart was pounding. "Hello, Kirk, you're in deep, aren't you?" A low, assured voice murmured when he paused for a moment before answering, and his grasp tightened on the phone as the other person laughed. "Let's assume that someone is aware of what's going to happen, and believe me, you're." The voice continued slowly and steadily, gathering receipts, old transactions, money, and things you thought were buried, and now the producers are keeping it. Kirk's stomach nodded, and he said, "If you have something to say, say it." Kirk was cautious, wasn't he? His breath seized in his throat. He looked at Rashida, who was trying to read and was paying close attention. He laughed again, and Kirk tightened his jaw, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yeah, but let me tell you something. You better start preparing for the foul out." The call ended, and Kirk dropped his phone slowly, his thoughts racing. "Kirk, what the hell was that?" Rashida moved forward and spoke excitedly. "What do they mean by old deals?" "I don't know," Kirk said. Kirk nodded slowly as if everything had fallen on him. Rash narrowed her eyes and added, "You need to find out who's behind this, because if this gets out, if this story blows up, you won't just be replaced, you'll be blacklisted." "Baby, I'm not sure. Although I did make some moves in the past, nothing could have caught me in this situation." He needed answers, and Carly Red Kirk, who unexpectedly appeared in the cafe, was the only person with whom to begin. Carly was sipping a cocktail and engaged in conversation when she caught sight of him, and a smirk formed on her lips. Well, look who showed up at last." Kirk cut the act, Carly, short by ignoring her demeanor and entering the booth across from her. "I'm aware that you have been." Carly, clearly enjoying this, arched an eyebrow. "And what precisely am I being charged with this time?" "I'm getting called anonymous numbers," Kirk added, leaning low in his voice, suggesting that the producers are eating up the dirt on me. I thought Carly was shaking her head and laughing because you like to pry into other people's affairs. "I'm not about time, please." Kirk looked closely at Carrie. She wasn't clever like this, but she was messy. She enjoyed being the owner of drama, but she also loved it. Maybe Rashida was correct. Maybe this was more significant than Carly. You're not incorrect to worry that the streets are talking, and based on what I've heard, this isn't the case, Carly said as she sipped her drink. "Someone is out to get you." Titan, who leaned back and tapped her fingernails on the table, was in Kirk's tummy. Isn't that the most important question? Kirk stopped thinking and went straight to Bandy, who knew everything about him and had been too silent lately. Even though if I were you, I would be looking at people I felt I could trust. Kirk was thinking a lot as he tried to piece together whether or not Bambi was the one setting him up during the peaceful trip to her house. She had every reason to do so. They had once been cool, but she had cut ties with Scrappy after the fallout, and she had always been a cunning manipulator of drama. Bambi was waiting for him when he arrived. Bambi squinted her eyes as Kirk moved closer, his voice tense with rage. With an unimpressed expression, Kirk questioned, "What are you talking about? Hark didn't waste time cutting the games, so why are you here? Are you the one behind this? Do you offer the producer false information about me? Someone is attempting to discredit me." Kirk wasn't persuaded, and Bambi sneered when you began behaving goofily. "Why are people saying that I should be watching my back around you, and why is your name popping up?" Kirk's chest constricted, and Bambi's face darkened because they want you to stare at the wrong individuals. "Then, please let me know who I..." Observing Vanny massage her forehead should be the focus. "Kirk, pay attention. I'm not the one attempting to bury you. This isn't about replacing you on the show. Rather, it's about getting rid of you for good. So if you want my advice, look at the network and the people in power." Kirk was uneasy. The makers of the network. With his mind racing, Kirk sat in his car and tore the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles became white. This was about the network, not simply small-time drama, if Bambi was being honest, as her tone suggested. This was a bitter personal vendetta, and he was going to lose everything if he didn't discover who was actually responsible. The producers were trying to obliterate him, not just replace him. But he wanted answers, and Stevie J was the only one who could provide them. He had been in the game too long and knew the chess movements and the producer's strategies. If anybody could help him make sense of what was happening, it was Stevie. Pulling out his phone, Kirk called Stevie. 30 minutes later, Kirk pulled up to a dimly lit lounge that only a few people in the industry knew about, and there was Stevie, leaning back in a booth and drinking a drink as if he didn't give a damn. Kirk answered Stevie's voice as casually as ever, and after a pause, Stevie sighed, "I thought you would call me and meet me at the spot." With his teeth clenched, Kirk moved into the booth opposite him. Kirk leaned over and questioned gravely, "What the hell does that mean?" "I know you know what's going on," Kirk continued, and before putting down his glass, Stevie took another SI. "You're late to the party, man. Everyone knew this was coming except for you." "Now the network is cleaning house, Kirk," he stated. "They've been planning this for months." Kirk nodded his head and replied, "You think this is about you?" "Nah, it's bigger than that." "Then why the hell are they making me the target?" Stevie shouted. "Because you were an easy exit. You gave them gold for years, but now they don't need you. They need a new villain. You had drama, scandals, and messy situations with Rashida. Hell, man. This isn't new, bro. This is Hollywood. They build you up, then they tear you down." Stevie shot him a knowing glance. Kirk sat back, his heart racing, and everything started to make sense. Kirk tightened his hands and said, "The show needs drama to survive, and the producers are changing the narrative by bringing in new faces and blood, and you're in the way." The way the producers had been acting, how his scenes had been growing shorter, and how some cast members had suddenly been given more screen time had Kirk's head racing the entire trip home. They had been carefully and gradually phasing him out, so this wasn't a random occurrence. Kirk felt confined now that they were aiming for the kill shot, wondering whether the network had already made. When he came in the front door, Rashida was waiting with his arms folded. Kirk ran a palm down his face, which appeared to have been haunted by a ghost. "Shia, it's worse than I thought. They're deliberately excluding me, and it's not about me making a mistake or some old scandal coming back. Didn't alter, so we struck back at Kirk's authority over everything. If they wanted to, they could make me the biggest villain on TV overnight by cutting me out and changing the story to make me look crazy. We changed the script when Rashida drew nearer. We had influence over the story before they did, so if they wanted to make you appear bad, we were ahead of them." Kirk looked at her in confusion. "As if you're quitting the show because you're too big for reality TV, we smile and provide our version of events, creating the idea that you're departing on your own terms. You really think that people will believe that?" Kirk said, raising an eyebrow. Rashida nodded, "Hell yeah. And when they attempt, we make it look like you're the one taking action instead of the other way around. People will think you departed on your own, trying to make you look like a former reality star." Kirk started to see the vision, and it would be harder for the producers to turn the story against him if they could take charge of it first. If he was going down, he was going out on his own terms, so he pulled out his phone and opened Instagram. The next morning, the internet. "After years of appearing on reality TV, I decided it's time for a change of pace. It's time to move on to more ambitious endeavors after giving this show my all. I value my supporters, fans, and all those who have shared this trip with me. But do you believe me?" With a polished, well-cut video showing him sitting in his home studio and addressing his fans personally, K's post went viral in a matter of hours. A new era is just being started. Support rushed in from all sides as #BigMold only supporters went berserk. Kirk made the right choice, and it's crazy that he left the show. This man simply gained respect, and even celebrities started complimenting him. Reality TV is no longer the thing. The best part, though, was that the producers hadn't even had time to think about it, so they were taken by surprise. Chance to explain themselves, but it was too late. The public had already come to the conclusion that Kirk Frost was changing and would not be sacked. Kirk was reading the remarks later that evening when his phone rang again from an unidentified number. After a brief pause, he said, "Yes," in a quiet, assured, and perceptive voice. Kirk's stomach sank, but he made his demand, and the phone was cut off. The voice chuckled. "Just someone who knows the game. Trust me, you just bought yourself a little time." He looked at the screen, his heart pounding, thinking, who the hell is this? In an attempt to process what had just transpired, Kirk sat motionless, the phone still in his grasp, his heart pounding in his ears as he gazed at the screen. This isn't over. That voice, that enigmatic message. Who in the hell was tricking him? Was someone from the network or a producer attempting to incite him, or was someone more powerful really in charge? He felt a chill run down his spine behind the scenes because if someone had taken the time to warn him in that way, it meant they were watching him closely and weren't done with him yet. When Kirk woke up the next morning, he could feel something going on all the time, and his phone was exploding with calls, messages, and notifications. As he accessed Twitter, his heart was pounding, and suddenly, Frost Expose's breath froze in his throat as he saw it while pruning #1. The hashtag made his fingers shake, and when he clicked on it, he was horrified by what he saw. Screenshots of old emails, texts, jump messages, and direct messages between him and women he didn't even remember speaking to, or worse, ones that had been manipulated to disparage him. Shady Dull GS exposed Kirk Frost's real reason for leaving the show, and the headlines were scathing. Did Kirk try to keep former reality star cast members quiet? Were dirty secrets revealed? Was this the last time? They had set him up for failure, and someone had been hoarding this information, waiting for the ideal moment to share it. Storming into the room was Rashida. With a furious expression on her face, she insisted that Kirk show her her phone and explain that he hadn't sent these texts. "I don't even remember half of this, Cheetah. Some of it's fake. I can tell just by looking at it," Kirk said, rubbing his face in annoyance. The problem is that nobody seems to care anymore whether something is real or not. Rashida said, shaking her head. "You were meant to." Rashida exhaled sharply. "So who is it who has this kind of power?" Kirk slammed his fist against the table when she pointed to her phone, shouting, "This isn't a coincidence. Someone's setting me up." Kirk was clueless as to who the devil was out to get him on this crucial issue. But he was going to learn that he needed answers, and the only person who might have them was Mona Scott-Young, the woman who had made KT famous, who had founded Love and Hip Hop, and who could just as easily bury him if anyone knew who was in charge. Kirk Mama's voice was smooth, and she answered the phone after it rang 3 times. But there was a hint of it. Kirk's question, avoiding the small conversation, was followed by the realization that everything was happening. I'm trying to figure out why Kirk clenched his teeth, but putting that groan aside, M remarked calmly, "What the hell does that mean?" It's already too late, and Kirk's stomach is twisted. Kirk's jaw tightened, but that doesn't explain the smear campaign. M&A exhaled, "No, it doesn't, but I can tell you that you're up against people who want you out of the industry, as well as off the show." A cold dread settled in Kirk's chest as he realized that this isn't just about him. The show is changing, and you were a part of the past. It wasn't a ruse, Kirk pressed. Who's pulling the strings? Mona was silent for a second before she said a name that made Kirk's blood run cold. Kirk was already on the go as soon as he hung up. He didn't even tell Rashida where he was going. He just drove straight to the one place he never knew existed. Inside the old warehouse on the outskirts of the city, where deals were made off the record, he found Stevie J. Kirk sitting at a table, sipping a drink as if he had been drinking it nonstop, and he smiled and put down his glass, saying, "Damn, Kirk, it took you so long." This was the real power broker of reality TV. Stevie leaned back, utterly unconcerned, and muttered, "What the hell do you gain from this?" as Kirk's pulse pounded. "Oh, Kirk, the network was already done with you." "I just gave them a little push," Stevie said, laughing. "You set me up with weak, fake messages that turned the network against me," Kirk said, his teeth clenched. "You think you're going to replace me? I already did." Kirk lunged, but before he could approach Stevie, 2 men, all big and ready for battle, came out of the shadows bodyguards. Kirk froze and Stevie grinned. "That's your problem, Kirk." Stevie's smirk grew wider, and Kirk's chest burned with rage. "You never know when you're already lost." Kirk's fingers were clenched at his sides as he drew in a sharp breath. Kirk's world had changed overnight. His career was in danger of failing, his reputation was in ruins, and worst of all, he didn't even see it coming. He wanted to swing, to remove that smug expression from Stevie's face. But he knew that this fight was over and that Stevie had won for now. Kirk sat on his balcony the next morning, gazing out at the city. When Kirk finally spoke, his hands tightened around his coffee mug. Now, we rebuild because if they thought they could erase him, they had another thing coming. Kirk's story isn't finished yet, but what will happen next? Will he be able to fight back against the forces trying to remove him from the industry, or has Stevie J already sealed his fate? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Some people think Kirk Frost deserves another chance, while others say his time in the spotlight is over. Do you think his reality TV career is ending, or will he make a surprise return? Don't forget to like and comment. Activate notifications and sign up. Because trust me, this situation is far from over. Return often to see the next surprise in this explosive reality TV saga.